Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we're going to be doing our weekly overview on the Bitcoin rainbow chart, Bitcoin price action, fear, or greed, all things Bitcoin. So if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let's start off with the crypto fear and greed index, and we always get the wonderful advertisements on this site. And you can see right here, crypto, it was approaching extreme greed and has blipped back down a little bit. As we take a look over the past couple months, you can see that we were down in extreme fear, caught ourselves up here and chopped sideways. Now coming back down towards that neutral, or I should say low greed area. Overall, in the last year, these are a couple factors with fear and greed that I've been watching. And that is one, we've been in this uptrend. Let's actually zoom way out. We've been in an uptrend ever since late 22 into greed. And now you can see we have been in this minor downtrend of lower highs, lower lows. So I'm waiting for this to possibly break and reverse back up. Now, this isn't the end of the world, because back here in December of 2020, that is when Bitcoin was making a new all-time high from its late 2017 prices. And you can see that reflected right here. Bitcoin was around 19,000-20,000 December 2020. You can see right there in that black box is around 19,000-20,000. And when it was making new all-time highs, later on that year, March, April, May, Bitcoin went to somewhere around 65,000. So all because greed was moving down did not mean that was the end. Just something to keep in mind, guys. Sometimes the correlation is 1-to-1. Sometimes it can be a leading indicator. So we'll see what happens. But the downtrend, just something to be aware of. Going over to the alt season chart, and I like to zoom out a little bit on this guy. You can see we are starting to chop sideways. Again, we were in this downtrend, and then we've been in this uptrend. So I don't want to see this break underneath this point right here. Otherwise, that might be a sign that we're reversing trends here a little bit. That Bitcoin, even though it has gotten to new all-time highs recently, a little bit over 70,000, then maybe we're just going to go sideways or even down for a little bit. And in this video, I'm going to get into a couple reasons why that might end up being the case, at least in the short term. And if it does end up playing out, we might be able to jump on some pretty good deals that we've not had in a while for Bitcoin. So we'll see. Right now, this is still an uptrend, higher highs, higher lows, but within those uptrends, sometimes we can get lower highs and lower lows, and we have to wait and see whether it is confirmed reversing the trend or if this is just another higher low. So we'll see. Stay tuned for that. Rainbow chart, we're going to reference this a bunch today. Right now, we are in the still cheap zone, and we've been in and around there or slightly above for a while now, really since January, February of this year. So a little bit over half a year. And Bitcoin just moving sideways, but overall still in a pretty good value zone. Now, as far as previous cycles have gone, you can see that Bitcoin has been more volatile, and it becomes less volatile as time goes on. Now, this rainbow chart, it is on what's called a logarithmic regression, which means log scale goes up by factors of tens, as you see here, and there is regression as it goes on. So instead of going up as sharply, over time, it starts to just kind of go out sideways. And so people refer to this as diminished returns. Now, when we hear the word diminish, we think of something that's lessening. And so right there, if you're a Bitcoin maxi or very bullish on the markets, you might be telling yourself, what the heck, this guy's saying the value's diminishing. I feel very bullish on Bitcoin. We can acknowledge that there are diminished returns while still seeing that that means we can still get very high prices when Bitcoin, if and when it is to spike up into these orange and red zones. So let's say there was a top next year in around May of 2025, you can see those orange to red zones would still be somewhere in the mid 100Ks to 200K. So diminished returns isn't a bad thing. We're just not going to get a 60,000x on our investments, like if we knew about Bitcoin and what it would be back in 2012, 2013, something like that. So let's take a look at the Bitcoin price chart, just see where things are at today. And on the weekly, you can see here that we have stalled out at this gray line. I'm actually going to take off these buy sell signals for today's video, and we're going to play with a couple other indicators today. Let's reference the RSI a bit. We have our moving averages. The red is the 20 moving average, the orange the 50, the light blue the 100, and the dark blue the 200. So you can see right here that Bitcoin, it is running out of steam, and you can see these wicks on the upper end showing that we might be stalling out as we have before. It's in this downward channel, as you can see here, lower highs, lower lows. However, people are calling this a bull flag, and so one reason to be optimistic, you can see this trend line that Bitcoin has been riding up and snaking around ever since the start of this bull run. You can see here, Bitcoin, the price keeps tapping it. Let me turn off the moving averages just for a second. Keeps tapping it, gets under, rides back up, and we've run back into the trend line. Now we are having some confluence here with the upper end of the channel and the trend line. And overall, in the short term, you can say that we have higher highs and higher lows. Now I know this is a red day and people are probably feeling pretty bummed about the state of the markets, but unless Bitcoin gets under, you can see the price here on the side around, unless Bitcoin gets under that 63.5 mark around there, 63.4-ish, I wouldn't be too concerned. So right now, it might just be a higher low, and we'll see what happens. Can it stand this trend line and possibly get above this gray line? The gray line was the 2021 all-time high. We'll go back to that. This was the November 21 all-time high. You can see the date at the bottom here. So that's what that gray, that's what the gray line reflects. Can Bitcoin close above that line? Right now, I have on the Heikin-Ashi candles, which cuts out the noise and shows more or less trends that happen. And so if it does get above that, then we have this channel, the upper end, to contend with. And if it breaks above that channel, I could see Bitcoin getting very bullish and maybe running into resistance somewhere around the low 90s, at least short term. But if it is to get above that, I think things could heat up really quickly. However, on the flip side, if Bitcoin were to get underneath this, and of course, you're looking at prices below 63.4, there's some price structure around here at 61. I'm sure we can turn on some volume charts too, and there's probably volume resistance, if I had to guess, pretty much, yeah, right around this range, 64, 65. You can see where there's a lot of structure. But if it were to get below that, then we're looking high 50s, mid 50s, and then go out to the weekly. Some of those other moving averages. And you can see right here, this is actually important to note, the 50-week moving average is coming up towards the bottom end of that channel. And in my opinion, when any stock or crypto stays above the 50-week moving average, it is still technically bullish. And sometimes the price will come down and bounce off it. And if so, that might be a good deal to look for. So if Bitcoin were to get into the mid 50s price range, I think as far as Bitcoin and other altcoins, you might be looking for good deals there. So that is something to be aware of. Now, a couple of things I wanted to talk about here, a little different. Each week I try to hit on different data points and present them to you and let you guys decide. Talk about things that have happened in the past with Bitcoin, and can we possibly use any of that data to maybe prepare us for what might happen in the future. And so one of the things that's been getting talked about a lot recently, and let's zoom out here a little bit, is the upcoming rate cuts. Now, the first rate cut, I put it here in this orange line. We can go over to the chart so you don't have to trust me, bro, on this. So if we just put in U.S. rate, or sorry, it's interest rates. U.S. interest rates. You can see this chart on when when the Fed is raising rates and when they first cut rates. So as you guys know, we had pretty hot inflation. The Fed raised rates. Inflation, it's around 3%, something like that. And there's talks about rate cuts coming pretty soon. So when rate cuts have happened before, what has happened? Now we can go to only one data point here. We had rates really low for a while. Rates went up, and then June of 2019, you can see there, Monday, June 17th, or around that time, mid-June of 2019 is when the Fed first cut rates. So let's take a look at what happened to Bitcoin. Now, I marked that off with an orange line, and you can see the date below, June 17th of 2019. And so this is what was happening back then. Now, at this time, I was here in crypto in 2017, and it fell off quite a bit. Actually, let's go over to the daily so we can see things even more accurately. Let me scroll over. After the 2017, early 2018 top and alt season, things got pretty painful. Bitcoin fell off a good 67, 70%, and then it really dumped over 80%. It was brutal times. But after that, that was the bottom. And Bitcoin then rose. It had this mid-cycle top and rose about 333%. So it went from around this 3,000 number, and you guys can see that up here, just a shade under 14K. Maybe it wicked up a little higher. But as you can see, when the Fed first cut rates, Bitcoin was still bullish for about a month. And then it started to fall off and actually go sideways for a bit. Now this white line here, this is the halving. And when Bitcoin finally broke the 2017 all-time high, I referenced this earlier, in later 2020, you can see the data at the bottom. When Bitcoin finally broke above its prior all-time high, that was over a year later, a year and a few months. So some people are wondering, when the Fed cuts rates, what's going to happen? Now, typically, rate cuts have not been good for the short and medium term as far as stocks and crypto have been concerned. Obviously, we had the COVID crash. Now, no one really could have seen that happening in advance. Conspiracy theorists, you feel free to comment below, or don't. Not that type of video here. But we were going sideways for a while. In Bitcoin, after that rate cut, you can see that, let's just take COVID out of the equation. Let's go by these bottoms right here. From the peak to the bottom, Bitcoin fell off a good 50%. Now, from the time it was when they cut rates to the bottom, around another 30%. So let's say the Fed cuts rates today, and maybe we expect something similar, or in the next couple months. We're going to go right around where this range is. Let's say we're at around 70K. And maybe Bitcoin only falls another 30%. Where would that put us? That would put us, funny enough, there's some price structure here. That would put us right at the peak here at around 49K. And actually, let's go to the weekly, because I think that'll probably hit some of our moving averages here. And so again, we're going to do this. If Bitcoin were to go down 30-ish% or somewhere around there, you can actually see it's really close to this fib right here. This is well, let's make sure this is on log scale first. So, okay, it is. This fib level right here is the 786 fib. So it might retrace down to the 786 fib. Now, if it went down around 50% or more, man, things would be bad. And actually, this is pretty stupid because I have the Fibonacci retracement. This is the 0.5. So obviously 50%, it'd be here around 33K. Now, do I think it's going to get that low after rate cuts? Personally, I don't see it. Now, it could happen. We don't try to get too much in the prediction game. Instead, what I'm trying to do here is show you past data and what happened after. And it does not mean that past data is indicative of future results. You shouldn't base your investment plan purely off of that. But what this is showing, let's say we did have a big correction after rate cuts, and at worst, Bitcoin came down to the 30,000s. What is in the 30,000s? Guys, that's the 200-week moving average. If that were to happen, that is deep, deep value for Bitcoin and crypto. Now, a lot of people will probably be saying, why would you want to buy something that's so bad that falls in price here? And guys, here at Market Psychology, we have to remove our emotions. I try to teach you guys to reflect and remove your emotions and just take an unbiased view with the data and make a decision off that. And the way I talk about investing is if I like the price of an asset, let's say I really like Bitcoin and it gets down to the lower part of this channel at around 55K. I like it. I dollar cost average in some money into Bitcoin. Let's say this channel doesn't hold and it goes down to the 786 or even the 200-week moving average. Instead of feeling sad and upset about it, because I'm taking a longer term approach, that excites me. So if I like the price of an asset over here, I'm going to love it down here because then, as far as I'm concerned, it's at a discount. And speaking of the moving average and what happened, you guys remember we talked about that 50% drawdown? Well, I want to make sure I actually measured that out. Did I measure that 50? Yeah, I measured it out pretty close to this base right here. But what was near the 50% drawdown? You see this dark blue line? That is the 200-week moving average. Now, Bitcoin only went under the 100-week moving average because of the COVID crash. So maybe instead of looking at it as percentages, you could just look at these zones as possible deeper value. And that if Bitcoin gets to the lower end of this channel, the 50-week moving average, or even the 100-week moving average, now I'm curious on the percentage here, that would be around 35%. And we have some structure back here. So I could see that happening. And guys, in a worst case scenario, I don't know if Bitcoin's going to break out of this channel and above prior all-time highs or not. I don't know if it's going to bounce back down. I don't know the future. But I am preparing myself right now mentally in case either scenario happens. And if it does break down under, I am making a plan right now. This is how I think on dollar cost averaging in more at those deeper values. Now that's my plan. And every video I share, nothing here is financial advice. You have to make your own plan and assess your own risk tolerance. Now let's take a look at the RSI. Is the RSI on the weekly telling us anything? You can see right in this price range, the price of Bitcoin was overbought, but it went higher, as well did the RSI. Now, what's curious about this is the RSI has only gone lower. So there isn't any bearish divergence or anything like that. So let's zoom in on the daily, see if we get any bit of a different story. Well, you can see here, I like this more because right now you can see that the price, again, it was higher than it was here. The RSI went lower, so it's just bearish. And we had lower lows, lower RSI. Okay, it was bearish. Now right here you can see that when we got to the oversold area, it kind of told us those were two good areas to buy. And not just the RSI, but also these moving averages, the 100 and the 200. Now what I'm looking for personally with the RSI is on the daily, if it does come back down to, let's say, around that 50 or 200. Remember that number I talked about before? It would be right around here, that number I talked about at 63.4. If it came back down to there, which should be right in between the 50 and the 100, where would the RSI be? And if the RSI levels out it a little bit higher than it was back here, I think that could lead me to believe that we are continuing to stay bullish. Now, it depends what happens right here. The RSI and the Relative Strength Index, by the way, that's what that stands for. The RSI and the price action will give us some clues on where it's going to go. Now, outside the RSI and using that as a indicator for the present, and you can look at what it's done in the past and see, okay, are we seeing things get bullish, bearish divergence, bearish divergence? There is an indicator we have not visited in a while that I'd like to talk about, and that is let's find it here. Sorry, 1 second here. The Pi Cycle Bitcoin high-low. This is an important indicator, and we can zoom way out for this one. And let's actually move or hide those moving averages. The Bitcoin Pi Cycle high-low indicator has called tops and bottoms since we've started. Well, not back here, but you can see Pi Cycle high called the top, Pi Cycle low. Crazy, right? Pi Cycle high, Pi Cycle low. Right at the top and the bottom, Pi Cycle high, Pi Cycle low. Now this time, we had another 10% drawdown. And the way I describe this area is, or this drawdown is, we had a black swan event with the FTX bankruptcy already at the bottom. And that's why we went down a little bit more. So it probably would have been the bottom, and then we had a black swan. But let's take a look. You see this Pi Cycle high moving average, this white line. Have we hit it? Have we gotten near it, above it? Well, we hit it. And what happened as soon as we hit it? We've gone sideways. And so if all of a sudden Bitcoin were to get very bullish, watch for this Pi Cycle high indicator. And by the way, there's no guarantee we're going to get this signal flashing ever again, high or low. But I think at the bare minimum, you can watch these moving averages and see if that occurs again. Now, let's take that off here and turn back on our moving averages. And I wanted to go back to the rainbow chart. Okay, this is a rainbow chart video after all. And so we talked about something different today. We talked about rate cuts and how they have been bearish in the short term for crypto and for stocks. I'll show you what happened for stocks. At least the last time we had big rate cuts in 2020, this is the dot-com bubble in 2021. I put the rate cuts here in red. I should probably change it to orange. But this is when we had rate cuts and what happened after we fell. Now, again, that doesn't mean it has to happen this time, because back when the Fed was cutting rates in the 70s, early 80s, you could see some of these rate cuts actually came near the bottom. And actually one of the rate cuts, at least in 84, the market kept going up. Now every market is different than the one before. And so hedge your bets. What do you think? Do you think rate cuts are short-term bullish, bearish for Bitcoin and stocks? I hear a lot of different opinions on that. And so let me know in the comments below, what do you think rate cuts are going to mean? But as far as the rainbow chart, if prices are to go lower, then maybe we could see Bitcoin getting back into one of these lower zones. And if I were to conservatively take a guess, then I would think that maybe this accumulate zone, that within the next few months, let's say the Fed cuts rates in September, because I believe they can't in August. Okay, I actually haven't been paying much attention to the news. I don't know if they've cut rates this week. I believe they had a decision whether or not they could. So I have to update myself on that. But let's say they cut rates in September and Bitcoin goes down a little bit. Well, I'll be eyeing prices in this accumulate zone. And you can see that accumulate zone is around the mid 40s to 60,000. Well, does that line up with anything we were talking about before? It kind of does, especially these two moving averages, the 50, the 100 week moving average, this price structure. So if rate cuts were to be bearish, me personally, I would be looking for opportunities within this zone. I think here would be worst case scenario, my opinion. Who knows what'll happen? That may or may not happen. But realistically speaking, If rate cuts were to mean short, medium term bearishness on Bitcoin, I would be eyeing this level here between 45 and 55K. Now, let's say rate cuts are bullish. Why not? Rate cuts makes things easier for people to borrow money. Let's say rate cuts are bullish. And actually, before I get to there on the rainbow chart, we've talked about this in prior rainbow chart videos. I won't go over all of it again, but when you average the amount of days from when Bitcoin makes a new all-time high to the next peak, we're talking about this, So you see this top here, when Bitcoin made a new all-time high, how many days to the ultimate peak? When it made a new all-time high, how many days to the ultimate peak? New all-time high 2020, how many days? And we're using this as the peak. We get an average of 300 days, and that's this green line right here. Later this year, that would be the average. This time was different. We had a new all-time high before the halving, and we take the halving average, it's closer to 500 days, and that puts us in August of 25. But let's say rate cuts are bullish, and we do get a top sometime around or before Q4 of this year. We'll just go right here in early December. Let's say Bitcoin gets into, conservatively speaking, somewhere around these orange zones. Then you could see Bitcoin might get up to that 110,000 to 180,000 level. Now, why is that important to note? Well, we have this fib retracement drawn, but when you're looking at new prices or new all-time high prices, make sure you take your fib off log, and you can see those orange zones. There's a couple fib extensions that are going to be very important to watch should we get bullish with rate cuts and start ripping up towards the end of this year. The 1618, and again, my fibs probably aren't drawn perfect, so plus minus 5K to be generous, around 100K. The 2618, around 150K. So I think those are very important levels to watch for. And also, guys, we could say, what about these numbers? When we look at these numbers, we also have to factor market cap. And the reason I'm watching this 2618 as a possible top, gotta sip my coffee, as the possible top, is because if Bitcoin did get here, the market cap would be around 3 trillion. Now, there's only 3 things in the world right now with market caps around 3 trillion. And those are the Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia stocks. I'm sure you can see today, maybe not Nvidia, so just 2 things, Apple and Microsoft. But if Bitcoin were to get bullish at that time, I'm sure Nvidia might bounce back up again. So if we're all of a sudden to get very bullish, 2 important levels to watch. Now, I also have this trend line. Again, trend lines are only good for as long as they're good for, but I am keeping an eye on it. And that is this upward trend, and it's probably not perfect, guys. If I zoomed way in, maybe the angle's a little more or less. But this trend line from the 2 peaks, if we were to start going up and maybe keep following this trend line we've been talking about, well, that gets us close to that 100K mark. And so if we did have an early top, and look at that, this line, this trend line, everything kind of bisects around the average amount of time from the new all-time high to the peak later this year. So this is what I'm watching for in a very bullish scenario later this year. Again, let's go back to the pi cycle. Sorry, not the pi cycle, the rainbow chart. Got pi cycle on the mind. And so later this year, you can see it again. The orange zones, well, here as we go further out into December, let's just move the goalposts a little bit. But again, we see low 100K to 185K. Now let's say Bitcoin does fall. Maybe we do get bearish with rate cuts as we did in 2019. Maybe we get bearish for a while, and maybe the top is closer to the halving average. Again, how many days on average from halving to the next peak? Well, the rainbow chart shows a range. Again, I'm looking at the orange, and we'll go out to August, or let's do late July. Close enough. That'd be around 135 to 220K. Well, there we are looking at some of those higher fib extensions, not just the 2618, but possibly even the 3618. And guys, if Bitcoin were to get bearish with rate cuts, and we are and if we are going to get more of a 4-year cycle, I would be then hopeful that we could have much higher price predictions or price targets between the 2618 and the 3618. So there'd be more time for those for the logarithmic regression to play out. As you can see here, the values go up over time as well. We also have inflation, and for people to keep up with inflation, we have to be making more money. Not that money is more valuable now, but $50 today is worth less than $50 in the future, if that makes sense. And so people will keep making an increased amount of money. There's always going to be protests and strikes, especially after times of inflation, because we want the value of our dollar to keep up with the cost of everything. And so I think that just organically means, as well as with this log regression chart, that we could expect higher prices. Again, it's not that the value is overall that much better. It is in one sense, but also, you have to think $1,000 here is a lot less than $1,000 back here after we've had inflation. You guys have seen this at the grocery store. So those are some things to keep an eye on. Last week we talked about Bitcoin dominance a little bit, the tether dominance. I'll talk about some of those things maybe next week. But each week when we do the rainbow chart videos, guys, I want to show you something different. I want to show you different data points for you to consider. And again, here at Market Psychology, we want to talk about our mindset. I have a master's degree in the field of psychology, lots of years of experience helping people, and something to keep in mind, through that work I've done, is how you reflect upon your thoughts and your feelings. And when things get pretty bad down here, that's a good time to reflect. You're probably going to feel that knot in your stomach. Oh no, Bitcoin is going down. Prices are pretty bad. And that's usually what happens with retail investors, or as Wall Street calls us, dumb money. We want to flip that. We want to look for value when there's fear, and look for it and be excited for that. Look at this as if this is a discount. That if Bitcoin does get down to these levels, you can say, hey, I'm getting Bitcoin or whatever altcoin at 30% off, 40% off, whatever it is. So if rate cuts are similar or do similar things to the price of Bitcoin in the future, try to have that mindset of looking at it as a discount. And now is the time to plan. We are at a very critical time right now, where if Bitcoin breaks up, hey, we'll have to think about possibly taking some profits, depending on what happens. Or if it goes down, now is a good time to plan. What would be your dollar cost average or buying strategy down here? And again, nothing's financial advice, but now is the time to prepare. So whenever either scenario happens, up or down, you will know what to do. So do your homework, make a plan, even if it's just writing it down on a piece of paper or in an email draft. Give yourself a 3 to 5 step plan so you're ready and you know what to do. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I enjoy doing these videos. Tomorrow I will be doing my weekly Bitcoin mining stock video. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in. So take care, everyone. Have a great day.